go ahead and start recording the session. Yeah, we did our central store deployment. We pushed out Google Chrome, deployed it to our client machine. I also made it where we could not play games anymore with Google, the dinosaur game. Make sure you take all aspects of fun away from people at work. Make sure you paint the walls like a dreary concrete gray and make them really sad. Don't allow pictures of family or flowers or anything like that. Make it a great work experience for them. Okay, so we are at the point of looking at DNS. We have chapter 9 is due, I believe, Friday. Yep. Friday. Due Friday. You have all the way to Friday to do it. September 11th.
Wait. That was last week, wasn't it?
And we have a presentation coming up. Yep, we're assigned a presentation. That's not due. It's due the following Monday. But I've already got some people turning stuff in. Look, one person's already done it. Look, the rest of y'all. Y'all are slacking.
I can't see because you have the screen.
Oh. Well, the people online can see.
Well, that doesn't mean we can.
I like Jonathan's chat. He said you need to make people like they start working in a happy color and everything's really good, and then yank all the coolness away. That really,
oh my soul,
really cuts them down.
who hurt you, Jonathan?
Okay, let's look at DNS stuff then. I'll go into server 1. I got server manager up on server 1. And I'm going to look at DNS stuff on server 1 by going to tools and finding the DNS Management Tool. This tool looks very similar to what it looked like when I first experienced Microsoft Windows Server back in 1997 or 98. I guess maybe 1998. We have forward and reverse lookup zones. The content of DNS is a little bit more than it was back in 1998 because we have Active Directory and we have all of the stuff inside of DNS that tells us things about where services are located so Active Directory can work properly. So if we expand out DNS, we'll notice that we have 2 main zones that most people will mess with. Forward lookup zone is the main one, and reverse lookup zone is optional. You'll notice reverse lookup zone is empty. Probably normally want to create the reverse lookup zone. It has the benefit of helping some of your monitoring tools like routers and firewalls and intrusion detection systems and things like that to look at the IP address and tell you what computer name it was instead of just an IP address. And it might help you figure out what's going on with your network faster and trying to go, hey, this computer address right here, and go look in DNS or DHCP services and try to find what name goes with that IP. So that's what reverse is. Most of the time we're typing in a name like scooby-doo.com And then we, I think my voice is going to go. I was talking to somebody yesterday. My voice hasn't gone yet this semester.
Hey,
And I'm yelling through a mask.
Does that mean we have no class?
What?
When your voice does go, that means we have no more class?
I don't know. You'll have to do test out stuff. No. I've been known just to type everything. And I'm like, point. I can't talk. Read what I type.
You'll be like those people that do tutorials and stuff on YouTube that just do nothing but type. They'll just type what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, don't have my nothing.
I do want to test something out. And this will kind of have to be online, people. It's going to have to let me know. So if I do, y'all see my drawings?
I can.
I can.
Okay, cool. That makes me happy. That's what I wanted to know. That's neat. What about if I guess if I do, can you see me zoom in?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. There we go. So we're talking about reverse lookup zone. That right there.
That's too close. That's nothing to fix it. That's, you're making things worse.
Reverse look up zones. Yep.
You better post this on YouTube.
Okay, so what we're really talking, I guess we need to look at this forward lookup zone and stuff. Let's go to the properties of our server first, and we'll just start at the very top up here. So we'll go and right click your server and go to properties. So you can have DNS services run on a particular IP address if you want to. That's kind of neat. Maybe you have two network cards, one goes to the internet and one goes to your internal network, and you don't want the internet being able to use your DNS. So you could go in here and specify that you only want a specific card or IP address to answer DNS queries. So that's pretty neat. If I was going to run a DNS over the internet, I probably wouldn't be running a Microsoft DNS server. I'd probably be researching like OpenBSD Unix and running bind, which is Unix DNS services for security purposes. So there's our interface tab. Let's look at the next tab over, forwarders. So forwarders are a list of other DNS servers that you may have in your company. If your current DNS server doesn't have an answer to, it can forward the query over to another server. We also have an option down here, use route hints if no forwarders are available, and that's checked. Cool. What's a route hint? I see a tab over here that says route hints. I'm gonna go ahead and check on that tab and see what, oh goodness, there's stuff in here.
Way.
Looks like these all have IP version 6. There's some IP version 4s in there. Most of these look like IPv6 addresses. Well, that's kind of neat. I didn't know they were switching all over. I'm sure they're multi-homed and have an IP4 too with them. They used to in the past. So how many root servers are there? 13? No, there's more than 13 now. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, never mind. There's still 13. It just looked like that was more than 13, but okay, 13 root DNS servers. That's been that way for a long time. That's why I said 13 first. And IPv6 confused me. Root DNS servers are the very top level DNS servers on the internet. And yes, there's 13 servers that run the internet. Is that a little scary? What if terrorists strapped with chickens ran into all these server closets and let the chickens go, and they pooped in the power supplies of all these servers and it took them out? Sure, like, I don't want to scare people about the terrorists having bombs strapped to them and blowing up the servers. That's too scary to put on YouTube.
You could have said jam. You could have said throwing like a jar of jam at it. That would jam the server.
Nah, I think chickens would do worse. And they could peck at the people that tried to get them out of the server room and scare them.
That was actually a baseball thing.
So now these, and can you imagine 13 servers being able to answer all of the DNS queries from all of the other DNS servers and sometimes clients across the globe? Doesn't seem like that makes a whole lot of sense. Well, these root DNS servers aren't just a single server in a single location. Most of these DNS servers, each one of these typically have 100 to 200 actual physical locations across the globe, and they are all synced with each other, kind of like in a big it's a worldwide global cluster. And the locations are typically kept secret. A few of them are known about, but only a few. And if you go blow up that one location, well, there's over 100 other servers around the globe that are still working. So it'd be really hard to take down. They are meshed together, each one of them, A through M, all 13. We are probably looking at, over 2,000 physical servers in 2,000 different locations around the globe that you'd have to take out. And that would be a big undertaking. Hence, most of them are hidden in locations that you don't know where they are. One could even be in this building in a closet somewhere. I really doubt it, but could be. And you just wouldn't know it. So why are the root hints there? Well, if you have a DNS server running on your network and you want to go to Microsoft.com and your DNS server doesn't know where Microsoft.com is, guess what it does? It asks one of these 13 root DNS servers where Microsoft.com is. Each of these root DNS servers typically specialize in a different name resolution, like maybe E handles all the .coms. So it would know to go to E root DNS server and look that up. I don't really care to go look up and see which root DNS server does what and study all of the intricacies of that, because we're just learning the basics of DNS, not engineering the whole entire internet in this class. But that's what happens. And then say E would tell the DNS servers like, oh, well, Microsoft here's the Microsoft subnet, and here's the DNS services at Microsoft Corporation that you can go and figure out the address for Microsoft.com. And then our DNS servers will then contact Microsoft DNS server and query for any type of systems that we're trying to get to. So these root DNS servers basically point to the company's networks and their main systems that are DNS, and then you ask that company for all the stuff internally. Well, that's kind of neat. Now that makes your DNS server authoritative for the computers that are at your company. And then one of these routes, if you register, an actual domain name, that's what happens is one of these systems here will tag your system as and have a recording in it. So when anybody else wants to access computers at your company, the root DNS servers will point them at your DNS server, or your DNS server can answer for them.
Are we doing anything on this page, or you just,
I'm mostly just looking at this. We do have a unique situation in this room in that we're not connected to the internet. And for this lab environment, we'll never connect to the internet. But if our client out there, or like our Windows 10 and stuff, every time we boot up Windows 10 or it's trying to go to update.microsoft.com or anything like that, and trying to send all of our information to Microsoft, our DNS server is constantly probably in the background trying to look for a way to contact these root DNS servers and timing out. You know it is. Wasting a lot of bandwidth probably, or a lot of processing cycles for trying to access something that they can't reach. But we can fix that in a little bit. Well, let's look at some other tabs here, like advanced. There's some advanced stuff here. Hence why they call it advanced. There's really probably not a lot that you'd have to change ever on this page. Enabling round robin is very common. That option being checked right there means that if you have, say, 6 web servers and they all carry the same information, they basically load balance, they sync each other, and they have 6 different IP addresses. What that means is when clients request to access your website, your DNS server is going to cycle through the 6 different addresses. Every time a new query comes in, it's going to give a different IP address. So it hits another web server. That helps load balance out the request to your website or any server. If you have multiple servers with multiple network cards, multiple IP addresses, and it just spreads the load out that way on round robin. Look at this second one right here. Enable bind secondaries. You see that?
that looks like blind at first.
Yep, it's enable bind secondaries. And that setting up in, I think, through 2008 server. I don't remember 2012 server still had it checked, but I'm really happy that 2016 server no longer has that checked. I will tell you that was obsolete back in 1998 to have that checked. And it was by default check back then, and they included it checked in 2000 and 2003 server, and I'm pretty sure 2008 server, and I can't remember if 2012 was or not. So bind secondary is fine. Do you remember when I told you that if you have a DNS that's actually hitting the internet, I was probably going to use OpenBSD Unix and bind as the DNS system? That's what we're talking about right here. Berkeley Internet Naming Daemon or something like that is what it stands for. So Berkeley University and BSD Unix and stuff, they created the first DNS service back in the about 84, 82 time frame, right around in there. And they just abbreviate it BIND, the Berkeley Internet Naming Daemon. So the first DNS server on the internet and still extremely popular is Bind. That little checkbox made it, made the Windows NT DNS server backwards compatible with Bind version 4 point something, which was made obsolete, I think, in the early 90s because it had a bunch of security flaws, so they fixed it. And Microsoft, I don't know, for some reason had that always checked to enable it compatible for older DNS servers. So that should never be checked. It shouldn't have been checked back 22 years ago when I started messing with this stuff. So never check that. That's bad. It lowers security, and lowering security is bad. So now that you learned that Bind is bad, don't check it. Even though Bind is a really awesome secure DNS server, the Bind in Windows is for really, really, really ancient DNS service daemon that's been obsolete forever. Let's look. Bind DNS. '30, 1996. Okay. Thought it was a little bit older than that. Let's see if we can find a history versioning number. I don't see a table of versions. Well, I don't see the versioning numbers, but it was like in the 80s or so when the Bind 4. The Bind 8 was released in 1994, and that Bind Secondaries had some type of compatibility with Bind 4 something. So go Microsoft for wanting to keep stuff ancient and lower security. Bad things. Never see that check, ever. What else we got? We got debugging, we got event logging, monitoring, and security. So there's not really anything else we mess with in here. You can test to see if your DNS server works, hitting a couple checkboxes and clicking the test button and waiting a little bit. So my simple query against the DNS server passed. My recursive query failed. We had a failure. Why?
I think this is something wrong.
Because Andrew did something wrong. That's it. No, that's because we don't have reverse lookup zones configured.
It's worth a shot though, right?
No. Before I configure reverse lookup zones, I want to go ahead and cover the portion of the root hint. I told you that, you know, our DNS server is probably constantly churning away, trying to get to Windows updates and see the internet. So the DNS server is trying to hit one of those 13 root DNS servers, and it keeps getting, you know, a route issue that it can't find the route to the outside world. So why do we want our server to sit here and constantly try to do that when we're never going to connect our lab environment to the internet? So we could become our own root DNS server. We could become the big boys. Are you ready to go through the very, very complex configuration? Like the very long, arduous, complex configuration process to turn our DNS server into a root DNS service. At least it'll be recorded on video, so you can watch it over and over and over again, so you can maybe memorize all these steps. Get your brain all working really hard for it. You all ready online, people? So we're going to turn this into the big bad root DNS service so that there's nobody above it. To do that, we need to create a new zone. So we right click on the forward lookup zones, and that gives us an option to click on help, export list, refresh, view, or new zone. So we want to go down and click on new zone. And that brings us up a wizard. It's a really complicated wizard to get through. So this wizard helps you create a new zone for your DNS server. I'm going to go ahead and click next. It gives us a lot of options here, thousands of them. We'll read them off. It'll take a couple of hours. We've got primary zone. That creates a main copy of a zone that you can directly update on this server. Secondary zone, just a copy of a zone on another server, so you can help load balance stuff. And a stub zone. This is basically the same thing, another copy of a zone containing only named servers. It doesn't contain the entire contents. It only contains the servers that could answer for that particular subtree in DNS. And then we have this last option, store the zone in Active Directory. It's available if the DNS server is on a domain controller. And that's really great. Most of the time, DNS settings are stored in the text file. And text files are easy to be corrupted and messed up. So if we store it in Active Directory, that allows it to be stored into a database system and then replicated across all the domain controllers. That way, if something happens to the DNS server, guess what? All of its configuration contents are in Active Directory, and it makes it real easy to install another DNS server and bring it up online. So very preferred to store your zone in Active Directory.
Right now, we don't matter.
Yeah, we need that checked. So after making all the changes on this page, by not clicking anything at all or typing anything, we're going to go next. Now we have another really complicated question to ask. What do we want to do? How do we want to replicate the data? We want to replicate it to all DNS servers in this domain. You want to replicate it to all domain controllers in the entire forest. Which one of those should we pick?
Leave it as B.
And then there's something down here about Windows 2000. That was 20 years ago. And that's no longer supported by Microsoft for a long time, for like 10 years or more. So that's just irrelevant. So we pick one of these top options, which I'm just going to pick for our domain because, well, our domain is the only domain in the entire forest, and that option would basically about be the same thing as clicking the top option. The only time the top option might come into play is like here at ASUBB, whenever we are actually underneath astate.org or asusystem.org, and they're the top level for us. So that would be the only time we might consider replicating our stuff up to Jonesboro and Mountain Home and Heber Springs and Newport and all that stuff. But I'm just going to go next here. Now here's the complicated. The zone name to become a root DNS server is really, really complicated. You probably have to take notes on this, tattoo it on your arm or something. It's going to hurt. It's going to be a lot of ink. It's a period. and then you type nothing else. Really complicated. A single period. Told you it's going to be hard. And then I'm going to go next. And I like to secure updates at the very top. That's probably your best bet. Recommended for Active Directory in this case. Only if you don't have Active Directory and you want to somehow replicate between systems without Active Directory and Kerberos authentication, which you want to research one of these others. So I'll go next again and finish. So I made a grand total change of typing a period in that wizard. All just complicated. What does it call the period domain? It calls it root. So that goes for any DNS server. It doesn't matter if you're creating one under Linux or Unix. If you create a zone with a period, it loads up, and that DNS server now thinks that it's the very top level. I want to see what happened. Let me go look at properties of server 1. Let's see what changed. Forwarders. There's no longer any forwarders. I have no option to put a forwarder in. Let me look under root hints. What happened to my root hints? Are they still there? Well, I can't forward anything to anywhere, and I don't have any root hints because I've become a root server. That means there is nobody else to talk to. If I don't know the information, then there is nobody else that would know the information. It's basically what I told it when I created that stop domain. This will prevent, while my Windows client may continuously try to find Microsoft.com, and Microsoft.com is not going to be this forward lookup zone and it's going to say doesn't exist. It's going to stop trying to wait and query for Microsoft.com and hit a root DNS server and time out waiting for it. It's just going to be an instant. Doesn't exist. If the internet's dead, the apocalypse happens. Now our Windows 10 will be really sad. I think everybody, all of Microsoft left it. What happened with Microsoft? What evil government entity was able to take over Microsoft and shut them down? Makes me feel real sad for our client machine. So anybody have any questions on making a root hint? Why don't we look at Contosa.com and expand it out? What do you see in there?
I see a lot of same as parent folders.
Yep, a lot of same as parents. And then you see computer names, right? And out beside the computer names, you see that they're an A record. And we see an IP address associated with those. Are those the right IP addresses for those computers?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's the main thing for DNS is you try to ping server 1 and your client operating system sends server 1 to the DNS server, and then the DNS server responds back with 192.168.2.1, and then your ping command uses that to send ICMP packets.
God bless you.
Thank you. And I'm sure y'all covered some of this in Cisco. in other classes. I think they even had a chapter that talked about it in operating systems class. DNS and DHCP are two things that you're probably hitting most things because they're infrastructure services that make the internet work. You pretty much need both of those on top of your routers and switches to make the network work easily for humans anyway. So some of these others up here, we see a bunch of A records, and we come up here and we see NS, which stands for name server. And that just basically tells what are the DNS servers in Condosa.com. Cool. So when you server 1, server 2 is name servers in Condosa.com. That's sort of how our root DNS servers will figure out, how to send your client to your DNS server. We try to go to Microsoft.com, the root hints will go, well, Microsoft.com is registered over here, and it can pull the names of the DNS servers, and then the client can communicate with those to find all this other stuff out, like server 3, client 1 address. We have something else in here, start of authority. SOA, start of authority. That tells the server that has read-write access to the Condosa.com domain. Server 1 is the start of authority. Some of the other stuff that's inside of Condosa.com, these folders are a part of Active Directory. They're service records, SRVs, and they tell where services reside on the network. They tell the server that is running a particular service, like for taking your authentication information when you log into the system. So we see that server 1 and 2 both can run KPass and Kerberos. And beyond that, it also tells the port number that those services run on. So KPass WD runs on port 464. Kerberos runs on port 88. That's how that your Windows client machines are able to figure out where to send the username and password to whenever you click login. And they also know how to get session tickets if you want to print something or access another resource in your domain. They know where the Kerberos server is to get the Kerberos tickets by going to the server names and the port numbers. If you have to do lookups, maybe you're changing permissions on the file or something like that, and you're trying to look up other groups and user accounts that are in Active Directory, those are located by global catalog services on port 3268 on server 1. It's our only global catalog. You can also query for detailed information about those account names and stuff via the LDAP protocol, running on port 389 on servers 1 and 2. So all of that information is contained within DNS. And that's why all of your client machines have to have a primary and secondary DNS server entry in there that points back to Active Directory DNS. So your client's really dumb. It doesn't know how to do anything. It asks the DNS server where everything's at, what port number to connect to. Maybe looking at that, you can realize that you have a misconfigured DNS configuration set up, either IP address issue on your client or on the server, either one. Nothing's going to work right. A large portion of Active Directory issues, probably upwards of 90% to 95% of Active Directory issues, are going to stem back to either you're not able to communicate with the DNS server properly, or the DNS is misconfigured somehow. Definitely a big issue. Trust me on that. You're having issues joining a domain. Like, I can't join the domain. I can't find it. It's a DNS issue. Main thing. Anybody had your DNS service go out at your ISP? You're not too happy if it ever happened. I think Sean had some issues the other day with DNS and his ISP. And I don't think he was very happy about it.
No, it wasn't. Not the first time it's happened either. It happened a few months ago as well.
So yeah, DNS is, I don't know which one's more key, DNS or DHCP. Either one of those services go out and you don't have happy clients. They're very angry. They're ready to come with pitchforks. I'm pretty sure Sean seems pretty nice and laid back, but I think that he'd almost like be heading after people with a burning pitchfork with, with marshmallows on each of the tines burning, going after people. Make my DNS work. I could tell by the voice. You definitely have the pitchfork with burning marshmallows on each one, heading for his ISP. So you got to keep those services up and going. People get angry when either one of those services are out. Okay, we're coming up to break time. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. We'll play with dnslint before we set up a reverse lookup zone. And we'll do that after break. Okay, so we'll come back off a break. And we get back into DNS stuff. I said we're going to run dnslint. That was the first thing we're going to do. We have to get dnslint into our server one. To do that, you need to make sure you're in enhanced session mode. Why does it not tell me? Yeah, click. Next. I've launched into enhanced session mode and waiting for Windows. Give me a desktop screen. You might, I wasn't. You might be.
Yeah, for us, it's like automatic. When we boot it up, it goes automatically into it.
Well, that's good. So with enhanced session mode up and going, you can check to see if you've got the dnslint zip file in your ISO folder on your computer. If you happen to not have the dnslint program, you may have to access my computer so you can copy and put it into your ISO folder. So my computer, oh, I wish I wouldn't have renamed this stuff. BB, it's AT106 INST. Yep, something like that. So there's dnslint, and it's most likely under ISOs. It's probably where I've hid the thing. And there's a dnslint version 2.04. It's quite old, from 2004. We can see if this will run and work on our system. It should. I'm going to copy it. I'm also going to paste that into chat so you can see the path location if you're trying to get that remotely. Like I said, it might have been in your ISO folder. I don't know. If it wasn't, go ahead and copy and paste it into your ISO folder. So it's there for future generations of CSNT students. Alrighty, I got my desktop somehow. I hit Control Shift Escape and it brought my desktop up. Why doesn't it allow me to paste? I'm in enhanced session mode. Probably because I have to copy it directly and not through a share. That's not working.
You right click, hit copy, and then go into your thing and paste it.
Now it works. I'd already copied it once, but it's through the network share. It probably blocked it. So I have dnslint placed onto the server. Could have placed it into my Windows 10 client too, but might as well just throw it on the server. That way the Trojan horse that's inside it can infect the server and the domain controller and we can take over the world. I'm going to go ahead and install this into my computer system by double-clicking the installation package. And it comes up, and I'm going to carefully read the end-user license agreement. You're bound by these terms. Your soul will be sold to Microsoft. A special place in the afterlife. You will have to build the Microsoft programs for eternity. Okay, maybe it doesn't say all that. It might in here. So I'm going to click yes. Your soul will be split into 7 different horcruxes, like,
Right.
and will become Voldemort.
I'm ready, let's go.
And then I'll click unzip. 2 files successfully unzipped. I'm also going to copy this path location right here that it's got for me. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to need that later. On server 1, it's already unzipped, but I'm copying C:\\dnslint because that'd be really great to have copied.
This is a Trojan.
No,
Is that what you said?
no, Trojan's a virus. There's not a virus in there.
Well, I thought you
We're not
said it.
taking over the world.
I had my hopes so.
Pinky and the Brain, they never took over the world. You already know it always ends in never taking over the world. What? The Brain was actually the dumb one. That's why the world could never be taken over. And Pinky and the Brain cartoon.
Be born into what?
Jeremiah was born after that cartoon.
Rub elbows with slimy people. That's how you take over the world. Step 3, rub elbows with slimy people.
Okay, so I've got that the path copied. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to open up PowerShell. That's not PowerShell.
That's command prompt.
Yep, that's command prompt. Well, I'm going to fix that. Maybe. Yeah. Replace command prompt with PowerShell. in the context menu. Turn that on. So now we got PowerShell. And I'm going to try to type in dnslint and it's going to fail. All because of Nancy Pelosi. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to have the government coming down on me. Watch my YouTube videos.
Are you okay?
No?
You need help.
Yes?
So you did all that changing from command prompt to PowerShell just to do one command that failed, and then that's all you wanted to do?
For now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now I'm going to do some more stuff. I can't be a failure. I can't leave today being a failure, so I got to fix that.
I can.
So that is fixing the environment variables, and environment variables can be, well, let me check under system here. I'm gonna right click. Is that what I want to go to? Yeah, so I'll right click the start menu. I went to system. You can also use the Windows pause break key to bring up the system properties. And what we have to do on the system properties is modify the environment variables. You learned in Linux class that the path statement is what has to be searched. Every time you type a command, the path statement is searched for that command that you typed. When I typed dnslint, it did not execute in Windows because Windows works the exact same way that Linux did. There's path statements that must be searched when you type a command. And the installer program did not modify the environment variable and modify the path statement for that. So we have to do that ourselves. There's a lot of cool utilities out there that as you're running as a system administrator, a coder, or something like that, you have to modify the path statement. I believe we've done this in other classes. It's talked about in the Linux class somewhere in the book, probably in one of the labs. We're going to do that in Windows. We'll do that by going to Advanced System Settings, and the Advanced System Properties dialog box comes up with a button for Environment Variables at the bottom with a little ellipse beside it, meaning another dialog box will pop up when you click that button. And there's our other dialog box. We have environment variables for the user. We have environment variables for everybody on the system. I'm going to modify this for everybody. So even if a junior admin logs in to the server with admin privileges, the path statement will work for him too. So I find system variables and I click on it. I click the edit button. I do like the new modern look here. Instead of it all being in one long line, having to separate them by semicolons, they are now in a tab or a columnar format, which allows me to click new and paste. What? Why is that not there? Okay, you can also browse to add one if you want to. That might be dnslint. Okay, that way it types it in correctly for you. That's neat. Or you can just type it in C:\dnslint and hope you don't type it wrong. Jeremiah.
He can't when he's on that box. He can't. Because if you click it, it'll freak out at you. It'll yell at you.
What
I have on the control panel and system and security. What should I put?
We're not in control panel. You're supposed to right click the start menu and go to settings or system.
Okay. No, mine's the exact same as on mine.
Yes. That's how it's supposed to be.
Oh. That's how it's playing why I'm on.
Yeah, you're right clicking the start menu and going to system. There you go.
Well, it looks similar, okay.
It doesn't look anything like the other one. It's other than it's got some white.
You need glasses, buddy, if you think that looks like that.
They both have white pixels, so maybe.
Click the bottom, search control panel, that's what it
I didn't even say control panel.
That's not what we were looking for, buddy.
It's okay. So find it. Yep, we found it.
So now we can just type in that command on Windows PowerShell and it should run it.
So once I got C:\DNSLint in there for the path statement,
No domain.
let's see what Jeremiah. Yeah, we're watching you. The
Here's this part, so.
system very down at the bottom. Find path. Scroll up, find path, click on it, click edit. Yep. Yep. Then browse for the DNSLint folder.
Hey,
This
can we like copy and paste it?
it didn't work. Go to this PC.
The what?
They work for me.
This PC?
Yep. And open up your C drive. And click the folder.
So then,
No, it's DNSLint.
oh. I have a.
I didn't see it put it in there.
What?
How did it, maybe you have to click new first. And then browse.
Well, look at
That
it
was
on
the
C
steps.
drive. There's only one colon.
I have, well, that was just what the Apple.
Oh, wait, never mind.
Wait, is there two over there?
Two what? No, most people just have one colon.
But
What?
on his, it looked like there was two DNSLint.
No, no,
There's not one at the top and one at the bottom?
no.
Right, back at Jeremiah.
It's just an illusion.
Hey, it looks like you may have to edit that again. Maybe the browse did work. No, not that one. The bottom one down there. Path. You have to click it and then edit. Yeah, apparently somehow I got two. Maybe the browse did work in the first. Maybe you replaced the top one. Hold right there. Hold right there. Let's look at my screen. You replaced the System 32 one.
No!
You need to edit and type that back in because your system's going to break really bad if you don't fix that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but
You are so
It's a good
welcome.
thing you're not a system administrator.
Yeah, that would break your server might not even boot if that's not there.
yeah, you know what? I'm sorry.
5 minutes from now, you're
You wouldn't be saying sorry to us, you'd be saying sorry to your client.
Let's make sure Jeremiah got it typed in right.
How did changing the name of it fix it, man?
System
Because you hit edit.
root%
You had it
backslash
selected. You click
Oh, yeah, but,
System
yeah,
32.
so, I mean, if we
So
follow-
apparently you were highlighted on that when you click browse and it replaced it instead of clicking new and then adding a new one in is what happened. So that looks good. That looks good. You can hit OK now to
Yeah, I
fix
thought
that.
I had to, like, link to a file.
no, there's just folders. There's only folder paths.
Our computer doesn't spontaneously convert. The old best backyard number.
Looks like Jonathan fixed his problem. I think he helped fix other people's problems. Okay, so I've okayed all of that. Now, after that's all okayed, I can open up a new PowerShell window and I can attempt to type dnslint. And I should get something other than a red error message. And it works either as a DOS command prompt or as a PowerShell window. Either one, but
Cool.
yep. All right. check out Jonathan's. So he typed dnslint, and that said dnslint is wrong. It's dnslint. So you just misspelled it when you typed it, Jonathan. Your system's all good. Go back to your command prompt. You left the L out of the command.
He's going back because I think it's messed up. It's misspelled. If you
Maybe.
copy and pasted it, maybe you can.
Yep. dnslint like dryer lint. That's why they named it that way, because you get stale, you get junk in your dryer vent and screen, and you got to clean it out. And that's what dnslint command is all about. You have to close down your PowerShell and reopen it for it to work, Jonathan, after you make a change. Huh, that's weird. Hold on, I'm gonna type stuff. Don't move your mouse.
Did you not just put a space right there?
You didn't have the dnslint extracted yet. Extract it somewhere else. Unzip. Well, that step looked like that was skipped. There we go. You missed the extraction portion of it. Let's see. What about Jared? What's Jared doing? Object not found. Did you? Oh, the Jared, did you close? Let me see. Well, that looks good. You had OK out of everything. You had to open up another PowerShell window. Uh-oh, we're both fighting with the mouse. Or a command prompt window.
It's like those movies when two people are in the same body and they're like sitting and fighting each other.
Okay, yep, that works. Let's fix your PowerShell though. Settings, slider, close it. Now I can run PowerShell. Okay, I'll stop playing with your machine, Jared. Type dnslint, make sure it works. Now in PowerShell, I'm sure it will. Let's see. What's Jacob doing? Jacob, did you edit and add in? Oh, I don't see that extracted yet. Okay, I don't see the dnslint program on the computer. Let's see. Yeah, you got to get the dnslint copied onto your computer first, Jacob, and install it before you can do anything. Okay, so we all got, looks like I see the help screen popping up on here. Jeremiah, you get your dnslint running?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do here from the command prompt, or we typed dnslint, and we got this big long help screen, and you could read all the stuff about it. But come down here to examples. We got a couple examples here, and we're dealing with Active Directory. So reading through this, there's a couple that have like AD after them.
I think that means Active Directory.
It probably means Active Directory, but I'm going to scroll up here and look. What does that mean? /AD, used to request Active Directory test. Resolves DNS records used for Active Directory force replication, blah, 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 blah. Must be used with the /S option, where S specifies the IP address of a DNS server that is authoritative for the domain. You cannot use D or C with it. So it looks like we need AD//S and an IP address. Two different IP addresses, it looks like.
Isn't it 192.168.1.1?
So it does look like we'd probably just run dnslint /AD and put in the address of our domain controller, and then put a /S and put in the IP address of our DNS server, which happens to be the same thing.
Am I supposed to get a fail?
We're LAN II. Our octets are 2 at the third octet. You may have to put a /Y if you run it more than once, because it says here /Y is used to overwrite existing report file without being prompted. So if I run that, it will generate a report called dnslint.htm in the current directory. And it will automatically open up in Internet Explorer. Okay, so we have our dnslint report. It tells us the command that we ran. So we run dnslint. We did the -active directory switch, fed it an Active Directory server address. We did a /S and fed it a DNS server address. They just happen to be the exact same thing. So Cadosa.com is the root. Scroll down through here, I see some yellow. Answering authoritatively for domain, it says it's unknown. So that may not be a great thing, but it's yellow. I'll continue scrolling down. And basically we got a legend. Yellow is a warning, red is an error. And you scroll all the way to the bottom.
It didn't take it to the end.
What'd yours do? Nothing?
It just gave me an error.
Oh, you're under System 32. You may have right-clicked and run it as admin. You don't need to run it as admin. Yep. And that'll open it up in the then you'll be in users administrator folder, and it should run better. So our network is not extremely large. our dnslint mostly had black text and blue text, and none of those are listed as warning or error messages at the bottom of the screen, but we did get a warning saying that it can't determine if 192.168.2.1 is authoritative or not. And when we're using /s and /ad, we read about it up here at the top. It's /ad. It says the /s needs to specify the IP address of a DNS server that is authoritative for that domain. And the reason that we're coming up with an error or a warning here and it can't find itself is because it's trying to check this address and determine if it's authoritative or not. And we don't have a reverse lookup zone created, so it can't ask the DNS server who owns 192.168.2.1 because there is no zone that can translate that number back to the name. We only have a forward lookup zone, and we're only translating text like server 1 into an IP address. We can't reverse it to verify our information. So yes, computers are that dumb. They can't think beyond that. If something's not configured, they can't think that, oh, well, this resolves the 192.168.2.1. It cannot reverse that. It doesn't have the brain power. It doesn't have a sentient brain, consciousness. So I'm going to close this report down. I'm going to fix that. I would like to see a report with no warnings at all in it. And that's when you know you got a fairly good system, hopefully, if you don't have any errors or warnings in your dnslint. I will launch my DNS Management Tool again. If you happen to close it down, it's, from your server manager, tools menu, DNS. So we'll create a reverse lookup zone. Reverse lookup zone, just what it does. It does an IP address to a name. So right click in new zone. This is one thing that I do like about Microsoft better than other DNS servers, because Microsoft will let you type in things in a normal human readable style, and then it will convert them into the style that needs to be entered for a reverse zone. Although you can easily Google and replicate examples and get it correct for Linux or Unix. We'll see that in a second. So let's type in next. We're going to do the same thing. A primary zone stored in Active Directory. It already has the correct selections on the screen. We go next. All DNS servers running under the domain. That's good. So we go next. And this is new. Are we resolving IP version 4 or IP version 6? Let's do an IP version 4 and go next. And this is where it's really cool. We can either type in the reverse lookup zone appropriately by putting in the network address in reverse order, followed by .n-addr.arpa, or we could just type in the network portion of our subnet. So anywhere where a 255 hits on a subnet mask, you would type that portion in. If it's not a 255, you have to determine is it a 0 or not. If it's a 0, you would just leave it blank. But if it's like a 248, then you have to do your ANDing and figure out what number that would be. But we're 192.168.2, and we have 255, 255, 255, 0. So we have to add in all 3 octets. Now look how it actually is going to create it down here in the gray box. It's typed in backwards, 2.168.192.n-addr.arpa. So doing that on a Linux system, or you have to type it in. They don't do a translation like Microsoft does for you. You have to do it manually, and you have to know you have to find your network address, type the numbers in reverse order, and then add that .in dash address ARPA at the end. ARPANET. What the internet was before they called it the internet. The ARPANET. Did y'all learn that in hardware software?
What?
Or any type of I don't know. I think it was ARPA. There was Aloha Net. Pretty sure it was ARPANET. I'd have to relook at the history. I've forgotten more than I know.
I can tell.
Is that a good term? So you've forgotten more than you've ever known in the past. That doesn't make sense. Good stuff. So go ahead and go next. We want to allow only secure dynamic updates. Go next again, and we finish it out. It generates that zone for us, types it in correctly. It looks really weird, doesn't it? Really, really odd. When you create a reverse lookup zone, you have to somehow tell all the clients to re-register themselves, so they'll re-register their reverse lookup zone, or we can go back up to the forward lookup zone, and if we don't have many of them, we could go to each one of these and modify them. I wonder if I can select multiple. Have I ever tried that before? No, I don't want to delete. Okay, got to go each one and check and uncheck the pointer record if it's already checked. That'll force it to re-register itself every time you click on these. And that PTR record is the reverse lookup record. Now if I go back to the reverse lookup zone and I use my F5 key to refresh the page, I'll notice that I have every address that was in for each server that was in the forward lookup zone listed. Now when I run the dnslint command and I specify that /s switch and I'm putting in 192.168.2.1, there's now an entry right there in our reverse lookup zone, and it can translate that over to server1.contosa.com. And once it does that, it can take the server1.contosa.com and compare it to the records in here and see if it can find server1.contosa.com associated with an SOA record, and it can go, yeah, it's there. It's start of authority. But without having all those like loop, basically have to connect the circle there for it to work properly. I want to go rerun the dnslint command. The only thing is, I want to put a /y at the end of it so that it'll automatically overwrite the current report file that was generated from the last time we run the command.
Oh, it's yes now.
And when I run it, it seemed like it generated the report a little bit faster because it was able to not have to wait for timeouts for the reverse lookup zone to fail. It didn't fail. It was able to answer everything really quickly, generate the report.
That's so freaking cool.
And so I can run through it and everything looks pretty cool.
There's a lot of things that hasn't tested though.
Shouldn't be yellow.
Well, the computer is dumb.
Wait, where's yellow?
Oh.
Is that your screen? No, that's the other screen. That's both Haley's are like right next to each other on my screen up here. It's confusing. Go look, bring up your DNS page again. Tools, DNS. Did you create your reverse lookup zone?
I did.
Tools, DNS. That's what I was looking for. Oh, you didn't. You missed going, I think, to each one of these and clicking. And the ones that have the check, you have to check and uncheck them. Otherwise, it won't update. Yeah. Now, when you rerun it, won't have any yellow. So that's pretty neat. Do I have a dnslint on my computer here extracted? I do have dnslint. I'm going to open up a PowerShell window out of this program. Come on, PowerShell. Run, run, run.
Does that be in PowerShell?
No. I'm going to run it against our campus network and just see what the heck's going on with our campus network. I don't have my environment variable set on this computer. Let's see, I think Brian's over here. How do I update the reverse lookup zone? You go to your contosa.com up in the forward lookup zone. Left click it. That's right clicking, left click. There you go. Now you click each of your computer names down there. And you either make sure the PTR is putting a check, so double click them. Put a check on the PTR record and hit OK. And on the others, you'll have to uncheck and recheck it and then hit OK.
So what's the point in the apply button? When you're going into configurations and stuff, what's the whole point of hitting apply?
It allows the settings to be applied and the dialog box stay open. So then you can look to see if something good or bad happened, and then you can make a change and hit apply again.
It seems like we'll never do that. We just always hit okay. So it just seems like there's no point to it.
That scared me. I'm like, did I forget to wake up? I don't like that sound. You're fired. It's not allowed to have that sound. No, just kidding.
That's my dad's wake up call for going to work.
Yeah,
It's awful because I can hear it because the door's down.
Yeah, I might have a different sound for waking up.
That's not, oh shit, I was fucking first class.
Yeah.
That was whole fucking salvage channel, okay?
Okay, well, that's I just wanted to show you our campus network, but that's going to take too long, and we're at the end of class period, so we just need to close everything out, and we will continue working, talking about DNS on Monday, and then move on into other grandiose things with LAN II. Yes?
We're out with something different.
What?
You were out with something different than what we did in class today.
I know. I got to end the session. Everybody else, like, close your out, log out, and see you on Monday on Zoom.